The night she scratched that lottery ticket, my wife stopped being my partner and started treating me like dead weight. She demanded a divorce, threw me out like trash, and paraded her lover through the house I built. But she forgot one tiny thing: the prenup her parents forced us to sign. And when you underestimate a man with nothing left to lose, the payback isn't just painful, it's devastating. I was fixing a leaky faucet in our kitchen when Melissa came home with that goddamn scratch-off ticket. $5 of hope from the gas station, same routine she'd followed for 3 years. Except this time, instead of tossing another loser in the trash, she went dead silent. "Holy shit," she whispered, staring at the silver dust under her fingernails. "Holy shit, Danny." I looked up from the pipe wrench, water still dripping into the bucket below. "What?" She held up the ticket like it was made of gold. $5 million. The wrench slipped from my hands and clanged against the cabinet. 5 million. After 12 years of marriage, 12 years of me busting my ass at the construction site while she worked part-time at the dental office, $5 million was going to change everything. I just didn't know how much. "We won?" I asked, wiping my hands on my jeans. That's when her face shifted. Not excitement, not joy. Calculation. Pure, cold calculation. "I won," she corrected, folding the ticket and sliding it into her purse. "I bought it." I scratched it. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. "Mel, come on. We're married. What's yours is... What's mine is mine." She turned away, already reaching for her phone. "I need to call my parents." Her parents. Harold and Patricia Whitman, old Connecticut money who'd treated me like gum on their shoe since day one. They'd insisted on that prenup before our wedding, claiming they wanted to protect the family assets. At the time, I'd been too in love and too broke to fight it. Now, watching Melissa dial their number with shaking fingers, I started remembering exactly what that document said. "Mom? It's me. You're not going to believe this." She walked out of the kitchen, voice dropping to a whisper, but our house was small, and I heard every word. 5 million. I know. No, he doesn't understand yet. Yes, I remember what you said about being prepared for opportunities. I sat on the kitchen floor staring at the dripping faucet. 12 years. 12 years of shared dreams, shared struggles, shared everything. And in one phone call, she was talking about me, like I was some stranger who'd wandered into her life by accident. The whispering stopped. When she came back, her whole posture had changed, straighter, more confident, like she'd just remembered she was better than this house, better than me. "Danny, we need to talk." "Yeah, I figured." I stood up, still holding a wet rag. "About the money, about the divorce." The rag dropped from my hands. "What?" "I want a divorce. This money. It's a sign. I've been settling for too long, and now I don't have to." She crossed her arms, looking anywhere but at me. "I've been thinking about it for months. This just makes it possible." "Months?" My voice came out rougher than I intended. "You've been planning to leave me for months?" "Not planning, just thinking. About what I really want. And this isn't it." She gestured around our kitchen, at the house we'd bought together, fixed up together, made into a home together. This small life, this mediocrity. I laughed, but it came out bitter. "So what? You scratch a winning ticket and suddenly I'm mediocre." "You were always mediocre, Danny. I just convinced myself it was enough. That hit like a punch to the gut. 12 years, and that's what it all boiled down to. Mediocrity. I wanted to scream, to argue, to remind her of all the good times, all the ways I'd supported her dreams, helped her through her father's heart attack, held her when she cried about her sister's cancer. Instead, I just nodded. "Okay, if that's what you want." She blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. Yes, that's what I want." "When?" Soon. I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow. She turned toward the hallway, then paused. And Danny? Don't get any ideas about the money. The prenup my parents made us sign protects me. You'll get nothing. As she walked away, heels clicking on the hardwood we'd installed together last spring, I felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something colder, something that made me remember exactly why Harold and Patricia had insisted on that prenup. Because they'd been protecting their daughter from a gold-digging loser like me. Except they'd also been protecting their family assets from any claims in case of divorce, and in their careful, paranoid legal language, they'd defined family assets very specifically. I walked to our bedroom, where Melissa was already pulling suitcases from the closet. Our bedroom, our closet, our house. Where are you going? I asked. Hotel tonight. Then I'll find something better. She didn't look at me as she threw clothes into the suitcase. You can stay here until we figure out the details. Generous. Don't be sarcastic. This doesn't have to be ugly. I almost laughed again. Too late for that, sweetheart. Way too late. The doorbell rang. Melissa froze, a silk blouse halfway to her suitcase. We looked at each other, and I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, fear, or just annoyance at being interrupted during her grand exit. Are you expecting someone? I asked. I'll get it. She hurried past me, suitcase forgotten. I followed her to the front door, hanging back in the hallway shadows. Through the peephole, I could see a man in an expensive suit holding flowers. Tall, gym-built, with the kind of artificial tan that screamed real estate agent or insurance salesman. Melissa smoothed her hair, took a breath, and opened the door. Trevor! What are you doing here? Trevor, of course. The cocky bastard from her office building who'd been helping with her dental practice's marketing. The one who always wore shiny watches and drove a leased BMW. The one I'd suspected for months but never said anything about because I trusted my wife. Thought you might want to celebrate, he said, stepping inside without being invited. I brought champagne. That's when I knew. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This wasn't the lottery ticket changing everything. This had been planned, orchestrated, and I was the last one to find out. Danny's here, Melissa whispered, but not quietly enough. Trevor looked past her and saw me standing in the hallway. His smile didn't waver. If anything, it got wider. Danny! Congratulations on the big win. Thanks, I said, stepping into the light, though apparently it's not our win. Just Melissa's. Right. Well, still exciting. He handed Melissa the flowers, his fingers lingering on hers just long enough to make his point. So, about dinner tomorrow night. Actually, Melissa interrupted, glancing between us, we need to talk about that. Things are complicated right now. Trevor's smile faltered for just a second. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, taking in my work clothes, my calloused hands, my general existence. When he smiled again, it was the kind of smile that said he'd already decided I wasn't worth worrying about. Complicated how? He asked, but he was still looking at me when he said it. We're getting divorced, I said before Melissa could find a prettier way to put it. She's leaving me for you. Congratulations. Trevor's eyebrows shot up, but he recovered quickly, too quickly, like he'd been expecting this conversation. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. He wasn't sorry. He was practically glowing. But if that's what's best for everyone, it is, Melissa said firmly. Danny, could you give us some privacy? They wanted privacy, in my house, to plan their future with my wife's lottery money. Sure, I said. I need to finish fixing that faucet anyway. I walked back to the kitchen, but I didn't pick up the wrench. Instead, I stood at the window and watched Trevor's BMW gleaming in our driveway. Our driveway. The driveway I'd repaved last summer because Melissa complained about the cracks. From the living room, I could hear them talking in low voices, celebrating, planning. Melissa laughed at something Trevor said, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in months, maybe years. 20 minutes later, Trevor left, but not before kissing Melissa on our front porch. Long and obvious, like he was marking his territory. The Hendersons next door were out walking their dog, and I saw Helen's mouth drop open. By tomorrow morning, the whole neighborhood would know. Melissa came back inside, her face flushed and defiant. "This doesn't have to be messy," she said again like a mantra. I nodded toward the window. "Bit late for that. Helen Henderson just saw you tongue-wrestling your boyfriend on our porch." "He's not—" She stopped, realizing there was no point in lying anymore. "Look, we're adults. These things happen." "Yeah, these things happen." I picked up the wrench again, testing its weight in my hand. "How long? Danny, how long have you been sleeping with him?" She flinched at my language, but she answered, 3 months. 3 months. Right around the time she'd started working late, going to more networking events, buying new lingerie that I never saw her wear. 3 months of lies, of me cooking dinner for a woman who was already gone, of sleeping next to someone who was planning her escape. "Well," I said, turning back to the sink, "at least now I know why you've been so distant. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "No? How was it supposed to happen?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, fidgeting with Trevor's flowers, waiting for me to make this easier for her, to be understanding, to help her feel better about blowing up our life. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. "I'll pack some things," I said finally. "Stay at a motel until we figure this out." "You don't have to leave tonight." "Yes, I do." I looked at her, really looked at her, memorizing the face of the woman who'd just destroyed 12 years with a phone call and a lottery ticket. Because if I stay, I'm going to say things that can't be unsaid. And you're right. This doesn't have to be uglier than it already is. She had the grace to look ashamed. For about 3 seconds. "The lawyers will handle everything," she said. "Fair and square." Fair and square. Right. Like there was anything fair about being blindsided by your wife and her boyfriend celebrating your marriage's end with champagne and flowers. I went to our bedroom and threw some clothes into a gym bag. Melissa had disappeared somewhere else in the house, probably calling Trevor to tell him the coast was clear. When I came back through the living room, I could hear her voice drifting from the kitchen. "No, he's leaving." "I know. It's perfect timing." "Tomorrow?" "Yes. I can't wait to start planning." Planning. With my wife's $5 million and my wife's body and my wife's future. Everything that used to be ours, carved up and redistributed while I packed a bag like some vagrant being kicked out of a shelter. I stopped at the front door, gym bag in hand, and looked around our house one more time. The hardwood floors we'd refinished, the walls we'd painted, the kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands because we couldn't afford contractors. Everything we'd built together, about to become their love nest. But as I reached for the door handle, something nagged at me. Something about Harold and Patricia's precious prenup and the way they'd worded it. Something about protecting family assets from gold-digging spouses. I smiled for the first time all night. Melissa thought throwing me out was the end of the story. Turns out it was just the prologue. The Stardust Motel wasn't the Ritz, but it had cable TV and hot water, and most importantly, it was $15 cheaper per night than anywhere else in town. I'd been there 3 days, living off gas station coffee and convenience store sandwiches, when I finally worked up the courage to call Jeffrey Steinberg. Jeff was a lawyer I'd known since high school, back when he was just another kid from the wrong side of town trying to make something of himself. Now he had his own practice, a decent reputation, and most importantly, he owed me a favor from when I'd helped him move his office furniture for free last year. "Danny Patterson," he said when he picked up the phone. "I heard about you and Melissa." "I'm sorry, man." Of course he'd heard. In a town this size, news traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at the speed of light. "Thanks. Listen, Jeff, I need some legal advice about a prenup." "Yours?" "Yeah, Harold and Patricia Whitman insisted on it before the wedding. I need to know exactly what it says. There was a pause. You don't have a copy? I do, but I need someone who speaks lawyer to explain it to me. Someone I trust. Another pause. How much is this about? $5 million. The pause got longer. Jesus, Danny. What did you do, rob a bank? Melissa won the lottery. She's divorcing me for it. And you think the prenup affects the winnings? I think a lot of things. Can you meet me somewhere? I'd rather not discuss this over the phone. We met at Denny's because it was the kind of place where two guys could talk quietly in a corner booth without drawing attention. I brought the prenup documents, yellow highlighted and dog-eared from 3 days of obsessive reading. Jeff ordered coffee and put on his reading glasses. This is interesting, he said after 5 minutes of silence. Interesting good or interesting bad? Interesting complicated. He set the papers down, rubbing his temples. Your in-laws were very thorough and very paranoid. Meaning? Meaning, they were so worried about protecting their daughter from a potential gold digger that they created some unintended consequences. He tapped one section with his pen. See this clause about assets acquired during the marriage through windfall, inheritance, or unexpected financial gain. I leaned forward. Yeah? They were trying to protect any money Melissa might inherit from them. But they defined it broadly. Too broadly. I'm not following. Jeff smiled, the kind of smile that meant someone was about to get very good news or very bad news, depending on which side they were on. If Melissa initiates divorce proceedings, this prenup entitles you to 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage, including windfalls. It also grants you exclusive ownership of any real property purchased jointly during the marriage, plus spousal support for half the length of the marriage. The words hit me like cold water. You're saying... I'm saying your wife's parents accidentally screwed their own daughter. If she divorces you, you get half the lottery money, the house, the car, and 6 years of alimony. Jeff leaned back, whistling softly. Danny, this prenup is worth about $3 million to you. I stared at him, then at the documents, then back at him. Are you sure? I'm sure. Your in-law's lawyer was either incompetent or deliberately sabotaging his own client. My guess is incompetent. Jeff gathered the papers into a neat stack. The question is, what do you want to do about it? What did I want to do? 3 days ago, I'd wanted to crawl into a hole and die. Now, sitting in a Denny's booth with the power to turn my wife's victory into her worst nightmare, I felt something I hadn't felt since she scratched that ticket. Hope. I want to fight, I said. It's going to get ugly. Melissa's going to lawyer up with someone expensive. Her parents are going to throw money at this. Let them. The prenup is the prenup. Jeff nodded slowly. All right. But Danny, keep this quiet until we're ready to move. Don't give them a chance to find a loophole or claim the document was signed under duress. How long do I have to stay quiet? Until she files. Once the divorce papers are served, we respond with our counterclaim. Then it's too late for them to back out. I left Denny's feeling like a different man. Not better exactly, but focused, purposeful. For 3 days, I'd been the victim of Melissa's betrayal. Now I was something else entirely. I was the guy with the bigger stick. Back at the Stardust, I called in sick to work and spent the afternoon making plans. Not revenge plans. I wasn't stupid enough to do anything illegal. But plans to make sure that when this whole thing went public, I came out looking like the wronged husband instead of the deadbeat loser. First, I needed evidence. If Melissa had been cheating for 3 months, there had to be a paper trail. Credit card receipts, restaurant reservations, hotel bookings. I didn't have access to her personal accounts, but I still had our joint checking account until the divorce was finalized. I spent 2 hours online, going through 3 months of bank statements. It was all there. Dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Charges at Victoria's Secret when she hadn't bought me anything in months. A hotel room in the next town over on a Tuesday when she'd told me she was working late. The picture that emerged made me sick to my stomach, but it also made me angry. Really, properly angry, for the first time since this whole nightmare started. She hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been using our money to do it. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "This is Trevor. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. "About what?" "About staying away from Melissa. Meet me at Gold's Gym on Porter Street. 1 hour." I almost laughed. Trevor wanted to have a tough guy conversation at his gym, probably surrounded by his muscle-bound buddies who could make me disappear if I didn't cooperate. He was trying to intimidate me into rolling over quietly while he stole my wife. But Trevor didn't know about the prenup. Trevor thought I was just another blue-collar loser who'd slink away with his tail between his legs rather than fight for scraps. Trevor was about to learn how wrong he could be. I showed up at Gold's Gym 45 minutes early and spent the time scoping out the parking lot. Security cameras at every entrance, plenty of foot traffic, and most importantly, no convenient places to have a private conversation without witnesses. Perfect. Trevor arrived exactly on time, driving his BMW like he owned the world. He parked in a handicapped space, because of course he did, and strutted toward the gym entrance like he was walking a red carpet. I intercepted him halfway across the parking lot. "You wanted to talk?" He turned, sizing me up with the kind of look reserved for insects and solicitors. Up close, he was bigger than I'd expected, but soft. Gym muscles built for show, not for actual work. His hands were smooth, his nails manicured, and his watch probably cost more than I made in a month. "Danny, right? We didn't get properly introduced the other night." "No, we didn't. You were too busy tongue-sleeping with my wife on my front porch." His smile tightened. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss. This whole situation is unfortunate, but it doesn't have to get nasty. Melissa's moving on, and frankly, so should you." "Is that right?" "Look, I'm not trying to be a dick about this. I get it. Breakups suck. But she's made her choice, and trying to drag things out or make trouble is just going to hurt everyone involved." I laughed, and Trevor's confidence flickered for just a second. "You think I'm going to make trouble?" "I think you're a guy who just lost his meal ticket and might be tempted to do something stupid, like contest the divorce or make accusations about Melissa's character." "Her character?" I took a step closer. "You mean like the fact that she's been cheating on her husband for 3 months with some sleazy wannabe alpha in a knockoff suit?" Trevor's jaw tightened. "Careful, Danny." "Or what? You'll beat me up in a gym parking lot full of witnesses and security cameras?" I gestured around us. "Real smart, college boy. I don't want to fight you. I'm trying to help you understand reality. Melissa has $5 million now. She can afford lawyers you've never heard of. You're a construction worker living in a motel. Do the math." The condescension in his voice was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everything about his posture, his tone, his smug expression said he'd already decided I wasn't worth his time. Just another working-class loser who didn't understand how the world really worked. "You're right," I said, taking another step closer. "I should probably just accept that my wife fell out of love with me and found someone better." Trevor relaxed slightly. "Exactly. These things happen. No point in being bitter about it." "But here's the thing, Trevor." I smiled, the same smile Jeff had worn in Denny's when he'd explained about the prenup. "You're assuming I'm going to lose." "You are going to lose. Melissa's parents have more money than God, and they're going to make sure their daughter gets what she wants. Even if what she wants is illegal?" Trevor's confident expression wavered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means $5 million doesn't belong to just Melissa. It belongs to both of us, and when she tries to keep it all for herself, that's called theft." "Bullshit. She won that money. She won it during our marriage, with money from our joint account, while living in our house. That makes it marital property. I pulled out my phone and held it up. And this conversation we're having? The one where you're threatening me to keep quiet about community property laws? That's called witness intimidation. Trevor stepped back, his face going pale. I'm not threatening you. No. Then what do you call telling me to stay away from my own wife or face consequences I can't handle? I hit record on my phone's camera. Go ahead, Trevor. Tell me again how I should keep my mouth shut about Melissa stealing half my lottery winnings. Turn that off. Turn what off? I'm just recording a friendly conversation between two guys who both care about Melissa's happiness. I raised my voice slightly, making sure it carried across the parking lot. Unless you're saying something you don't want recorded? Trevor lunged for my phone, but I'd been expecting it. I stepped back and to the side, letting him stumble past me into the concrete parking divider. He caught himself before he fell, but not before scraping his palms on the rough surface. You're bastard. Now that sounded like a threat, I said, still recording. Should I be worried about my safety, Trevor? He looked around the parking lot, suddenly aware of how public our location was. A couple of gym members had stopped to watch, and an employee was walking toward us from the front entrance. This isn't over, Trevor snarled, but he was already backing toward his car. Sure it is, I called after him. Tell Melissa I said hi, and tell her to enjoy the lottery money while she can. Trevor peeled out of the parking lot, leaving me standing there with a phone full of video evidence and a smile that wouldn't quit. The gym employee, a college-age kid with concerned eyes, jogged over to check on me. You okay, man? That guy seemed pretty pissed. Yeah, I'm fine. Just a misunderstanding about a woman. Those are the worst kind. The kid looked around at the scattered audience. You want me to call the cops or anything? Nah, but thanks. He's all bark, no bite. As I walked back to my truck, I felt better than I had since this whole nightmare started. Trevor thought he was dealing with some broken-hearted loser who'd roll over and play dead. Instead, he'd just threatened a man with nothing to lose and everything to gain. But the best part? He'd done it on camera. Back at the motel, I uploaded the video to my laptop and watched it 3 times. Clear audio, good video quality, and Trevor making himself look like an aggressive asshole while I stayed calm and reasonable. Insurance policy. My phone rang. Jeff's office number. Danny, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The good kind. Melissa just filed for divorce. Her lawyer is demanding an expedited hearing, claiming irreconcilable differences, and requesting that all marital assets be distributed according to the prenuptial agreement. I sat up straighter. They're moving fast. They're moving stupid. Her lawyer obviously didn't read the prenup carefully. He's asking the court to enforce the very document that's going to destroy his client. So what happens now? Now we respond with our counterclaim and watch their faces when they realize what they've done. Jeff's voice was practically gleeful. Danny, I've been practicing law for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. It's like they're begging us to take their money. How long until the hearing? 2 weeks. Judge Morrison is handling it, and she doesn't mess around. Fair warning, though. Once we file our response, this is going to explode. Melissa's going to realize what happened, and she's going to fight dirty. Let her fight. I'm tired of being the nice guy. Good. Because the nice guy would lose this case. The smart guy who uses his wife's greed against her, he's going to win big. After Jeff hung up, I sat on the motel bed staring at the water-stained ceiling and thinking about everything that had led me here. 3 months ago, I'd been a married man with a stable life and a wife I trusted. Now I was living in a roach motel, planning legal warfare against the woman I'd once promised to love forever. But as I thought about Melissa's face when she'd told me I was mediocre, about Trevor's smug assumptions that I'd just disappear quietly, about the way they'd celebrated my humiliation like it was their victory parade, I realized something important. I wasn't sad anymore. I was excited. Because in 2 weeks, they were going to learn that underestimating a man with nothing left to lose wasn't just stupid. It was devastating. Melissa figured it out on a Wednesday. I was having breakfast at Murphy's Diner. Eggs over easy, wheat toast, black coffee, when she burst through the door like her hair was on fire. She spotted me in the back booth and marched over, her designer heels clicking against the linoleum like gunshots. "You bastard!" she hissed, sliding into the seat across from me. I looked up from my newspaper, chewing deliberately slowly. "Morning, Mel. You look upset. Don't play dumb." My lawyer explained the prenup to me. Her face was pale except for 2 bright red spots on her cheeks. "You knew. You've known this whole time." "Known what?" "That I can't divorce you without giving you half the money." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a furious whisper. "You let me throw you out. You let me humiliate myself in front of the neighbors. You let me think I was finally free." I took a sip of coffee, meeting her eyes over the rim of my cup. "I seem to remember you being pretty clear about what you wanted. Divorce, my mediocre ass out of your life, and all the lottery money for yourself. That's not—" She stopped, glancing around the diner. Half the town ate breakfast at Murphy's, and every conversation in the place had gone quiet. "Can we not do this here?" "Do what?" "You came to me, remember?" Melissa's jaw worked like she was chewing glass. She wanted to scream, to make a scene, to let out all the rage and frustration that had been building since her lawyer had explained how badly she'd miscalculated. But Murphy's Diner wasn't the place for a meltdown, and she knew it. "We need to talk." Privately. "I'm listening." "Not here." She glanced around again, noting the audience we'd attracted. "Come to the house. Tonight. 7 o'clock. "Your house now, is it?" "It's still our house until the divorce is final. Actually, according to the prenup, it's my house once the divorce papers are filed." I smiled, enjoying the way her face went even paler. "But sure, I'll come by." "Wouldn't want to keep you waiting." She left without another word, her heels clicking out the same staccato rhythm they'd clicked in. The diner stayed quiet for another few seconds, then exploded into whispered conversations about what everyone had just witnessed. By noon, the whole town would know that Danny Patterson and his lottery-winning wife had just had a public argument at Murphy's. By evening, the story would have grown into something involving thrown coffee cups and death threats. I loved small towns. At 7 o'clock sharp, I pulled into the driveway of the house I'd lived in for 8 years. Melissa's car was there, but Trevor's BMW was nowhere to be seen. Interesting. Either she'd sent him away for this conversation, or he was hiding somewhere, waiting to provide backup if things went badly. Melissa opened the door before I could knock. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, trading her power lunch outfit for something more casual, more like the woman I'd married before lottery tickets and real estate agents had complicated everything. "Thank you for coming," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "Thanks for inviting me into my own house." She flinched but didn't take the bait. "Would you like some coffee?" "Sure." I followed her into the kitchen, noting the changes she'd made in the week since I'd left. Fresh flowers on the counter, not Trevor's roses, something more expensive. New placemats. A bottle of wine I'd never seen before, probably worth more than I made in a day. She was already spending the money. "Danny," she said, pouring coffee into 2 mugs, "we need to find a way to work this out." "Work what out?" "This." She gestured vaguely at the space between us. The divorce, the money, all of it. I accepted the coffee mug, noting that she'd used my favorite, the one that said "World's Best Dad," even though we'd never had kids. A calculated move, designed to remind me of better times. "I thought we were working it out." "Through lawyers." "You know what I mean." She sat down across from me at the kitchen table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. "We don't have to destroy each other over this. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm just trying to get what's legally mine. Half the money. Half the money, the house, the car, and spousal support for 6 years. I took a sip of coffee. According to the prenup your parents insisted on. Melissa closed her eyes. My parents are furious. They blame me for not reading the document more carefully. Smart people, your parents. They should have hired a better lawyer. Danny, please. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. I know I hurt you. I know this whole situation is my fault. But taking half my money isn't going to make you feel better. You're right. It's not about feeling better. I pulled my hand away from hers. It's about what's fair. Fair? Her voice cracked slightly. Is it fair that you get millions of dollars for doing nothing? Is it fair that you get to cheat on me for 3 months, then throw me out like garbage because you won the lottery? I leaned back, studying her face. Fair is a funny word, Mel. Depends on your perspective. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. When she looked up again, her eyes were wet. I didn't mean for it to happen with Trevor. But it did happen. Yes. It did. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was lonely, Danny. We hadn't been happy for a long time, and then Trevor started paying attention to me, making me feel special. So you slept with him. Don't be crude. I'm being accurate. You slept with another man while you were married to me, then used our joint bank account to buy lingerie for your dates with him. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the screenshots I'd taken of our bank statements. Victoria's Secret, February 14th, $93. Same day you told me you had to work late. Melissa's face crumpled. You went through our bank records? It's my bank account too, at least until the divorce is final.